Good morning. Good morning. If you are here for today, please let me know in the comments. Okay, so today's day 16, day 2 of the plants unit. You'll notice the plants unit is a little bit shorter than some of the other units. I mean, not by much, but I'm going to go over the project for the plants unit today at the beginning of the day. This is just something to sort of keep in the back of your mind. You don't have to start it today, but just so you know what's coming towards the end of the unit. I've pre-recorded the lessons again to try and keep things on track and relatively brief, so that they don't go super verbose. And then, again, the idea behind this is that you can get through the content in a relatively short amount of time, but so you have some time left over to work on whatever you need to work on for the course. I mean, obviously there's the course questions in your vocabulary list, but I know people have stuff from other units still that they're just finishing up and working on as well. So not everybody, but some people do. So the first thing here is a little summary video. It's a crash course video. Some people like the crash course videos, some people don't. I personally think they're great, but I understand not everybody likes that guy's voice. But this is a summary of the idea of vascularity in plants. So what is a vascular plant? Like, we've already been talking about this idea, the idea that it is a series of tubes for transporting water around. This goes into a little bit more detail on the anatomy of that, like how that tube system works. We're going to get into that in detail tomorrow, actually. But this is sort of a broad overview of how vascularity works in plants and like what the purpose of it is and the general layout of the vascularity. So we're going to start with that. Then there is a little video that goes through stems. So this is going to talk about the anatomy of the stem. What's in a stem? What types of tissues are in there? How are they laid out? How are monocots different from dicots and gymnosperms? It's going to get into this idea of tree rings a little bit. In grade 10, in the climate change unit, you may have discussed dendrochronology, which is just the analysis of tree rings. This is going to talk about the anatomy of tree rings. So, like, what actually is a tree ring? Like, what's going on inside a tree when a tree ring is forming? Like, what are those pieces of the actual stem? So this is going to go through that a little bit. And then there are a couple questions that go along with it in the course notes. Pull those up. So the questions that go along with the stem part are... Oh, yeah. What I did here was I put both of the sets of questions, both for the stem and for the root, together at the end of sort of stem and root. So initially I had this as one single really long lesson. I split it in half. So the questions are actually on page 9 of the little course package for this unit. It's at the end of the stem and roots section. And so there are 2 questions here that you're going to answer about stems. The reason why I basically made my own questions is that the questions in the textbook are not great. And I don't feel like they're particularly on point here for what I need you to know about stems. So actually, I made these questions with Ms. Rollinson, but we went through and like kind of made our own questions here, borrowing stuff from the textbook here and there as well. So anyway, here are the questions for stems. You could technically do these right on the document here if you can squeeze them in, but you may want to put them in your homework document. These ones don't have to be in your homework document. Remember that the homework document only has to have the textbook questions specifically. But I mean, if you're looking for a place to write these down, you can easily just put them in your homework document. So, and it's not a problem if they're in there. So there's the stem questions that go along with it. Then there is a second component here on roots. Okay, you go through the lesson. It's actually the same video, but it just starts at a different time code, about, I don't know, roughly 6/10 of the way through the video. And then this is going to go through basically the exact same stuff, except talking about the anatomy and structure of roots. So what does a cross section of a root look like? I should mention that normally, if we were to do this in class, we would look at these. So we would make some slides of plant roots. We would make some slides of plant stems. We would put them under the microscope, see if we could figure out which is monocot and which one is dicot. So, I mean, obviously we can't do that stuff under these circumstances, which is kind of a bummer. But we would be looking at these. So normally this lesson takes several days because we do a bunch of microscopy work. We do some microscope drawings of each. So this is sort of like that's the reason why this unit is shorter. It's because it's a lot of the lab component from this unit had to kind of just be kicked. I don't know how to do like a virtual microscopy lab. So anyway, that's where we are. And then there are some questions that go along with the roots. It's just the second little set of questions here on page 9. These ones right here, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. And then once you're done all that, there is a short exit quiz. Again, these exit quizzes are just to test your own knowledge. As you go through doing the exit quiz, they don't count for marks, but how did you do? Were you not able to answer a bunch of the questions in the exit quiz? And if not, did you go back, look over your notes, try and figure out where you went wrong? And if you couldn't figure out where you went wrong, did you come talk to me? So like all those things should sort of be going through your mind. The idea here is that the exit quizzes are a prompt to get you thinking about, do you actually know what you think you know about the content that you just did? And if not, are you doing something about it? Because you should be doing something about it if you're not getting it. So, and by the way, I would love to talk to you. So sometimes it gets a little bit lonely in the Google Meet at 1 to 2:05. I don't really see too many people there. Please come with your questions and let's talk about plants and I don't know. Let's talk about anything biology related. That's like, I'm happy to talk to people about biology related stuff. So, but anyway, that's an opportunity for us to get into the meat and potatoes of stuff. If there's questions that you don't understand, you might want to consider writing that stuff down as you go. And that'd be helpful. Anyway, so that root spot component is supposed to be for block 2, but realistically, you could easily do both of these in block 1. It is well within the time limits of completing that within block 1. So, I mean, realistically, you have some time during block 2 today for catching up on stuff, adding to your vocabulary list, and you may want to start the assignment, which is why I'm going to go through the assignment now. I'm going to say one last thing about this. Oh yeah, I wanted to mention that while you're going through the course content, yes, I have course notes that go along with most of the little lessons, which are fine. When you're studying, or after you're done the lesson, you may want to consider making your own course notes. A number of you are already doing this. It's a great study tool for getting prepared for the quizzes. I realize that the quizzes are not as academically intense as they typically would be because they're open book. But I mean, they still require study if you want to do well. But I will say that when we're doing this course in class, the old way, you probably need to study a lot more than you are for the course now, which is fine. I mean, it's not hugely problematic, but it is good. It's good not to lose all of those habits. For example, I myself am currently taking a course in my free time on how to code in Python, which is a programming language. I'm building a device with a Raspberry Pi. I'm looking for a way to program the software to interact with the electronic device that I'm building. It's actually a attendance system with scanning cards, which I hope to implement next year. But I just wanted to show you my own notes because I make study notes by the way, this is just a YouTube course. I'm just watching YouTube. It's a YouTube course on coding with Python. They do a little lesson. They give you an activity. You do the activity, and then they kind of take themselves up because you run your program, and if it doesn't work, then you fix it, and then that's kind of taking up the question. But these are my notes from each class. So I just wanted to mention, this is like a life skill. I have to do this. If I don't take notes while I go through this and then review them afterwards, pretty much the next time I come back to this, I'm starting at 0 again. I will lose the knowledge that I've gained. And this is harder when you're older, by the way. Your memory's not quite as good as it used to be. And so as I go through every lesson, they talk about several functions. In my own words, I go through and I just write out, what is this thing? What does this function mean? I used red here just to indicate what the specific functions are. If they give me any particular vocabulary in a certain lesson, I write it down. And then it's the same thing for every lesson. And then before I start the next lesson, let's say I go away for several hours or several days, sometimes weeks, before I come back and sit down and get into the next lesson again, well, they build on each other. So you have to go back and kind of refresh your memory of all the functions and stuff that you learned from the previous lesson. So I go back and I review my notes. I have a look at them and say, okay, well, all right, print, yeah, that's the print function. I get that. /n, yeah, that just makes a new line. And honestly, in 5 minutes, I can blow through these real fast, and I can reacquaint my memory with all of these, and then I feel comfortable using them again, even if I come back to it 3 weeks later, a month later. That skill, being able to do this, learn something, and then kind of put it into your functional memory and incorporate it as part of your skill set, is the end goal. This is what you. If you can do this at the end of high school, you're set. You're set. Do you want to learn how to frame a house? You can do that. Do you want to learn electrical engineering? You can do that. You don't even have to go to university. Now, I'm not discouraging anybody from going to university. University is a great organized system for doing this, and it's an accreditation system. The accreditation part is probably the most important part of university, which is that somebody puts a stamp on you and says, yeah, you definitely do know how to do electrical engineering, which you might need to get a job. But realistically, you don't even need that. You can learn everything you learn in university in electrical engineering. You can learn on Khan Academy. I mean, that stuff is really amazing. The fact that knowledge is just available for free to anybody online is pretty insane. And it's really no different than what you get in a university lecture. But I just wanted to mention that this is the end goal. If you can, and so what you're doing, even in the online course, by incorporating this new information, going back and reviewing, checking your knowledge with a little practice quiz or something like that, that strategy of learning is something that you're going to carry with you probably for the rest of your life. I use this all the time, and I can code a little bit. I'm not great at coding at Python yet. I've just started this course. I'm about halfway through the course, but I am learning this skill. It is functional, and you can do the exact same thing. And so anyway, I just wanted to mention that that's sort of the end goal. Even if you don't take away any biology from this course, heck, you may never do biology again. You may not even do anything even vaguely involved in biology. But that skill, that learning of a thing, is transferable to pretty much every spot in your life. So if there's one thing that you're going to take away, it probably should be that. All right, let's talk about the assignment. I just wanted to mention that because I realized the other day that I was doing a lot of the things that I tell people to do. And it it's probably helpful to show that it's functional, that it actually does something. All right, importance of plants. So this is very similar to the medical technology assignment, and in fact, I do this intentionally. I try now to keep things fairly consistent so that you have a general idea of what the expectations are in each project. It's not meant to be a surprise to you that each is a totally different type of project with a totally different skill set. I mean, in the amount of time that we have to complete the course, that I think it's an unreasonable expectation to switch things up constantly. So I try and keep things relatively similar. Now, it's another research project similar to the medical technology one. Instead of picking a medical technology, this time you're going to choose a plant. And you can pick any plant you want. If you did a plant in your species spotlight assignment, the only thing I ask is that you do not choose the same plant. So it's got to be a different plant if you did a plant for species spotlight. More specifically, though, you're looking for a plant that is important for humans. And it would be ideal if you chose a plant that was important to humans in multiple ways. So how can a plant be important to humans? We can talk about some various ways here. Maybe it has a religious or cultural use. I don't know. For Scots pine, one of its uses is that it's used as a Christmas tree that has like cultural, religious significance for people. Now that is a good example because Scots pine also happens to be used as a construction material, and so that there's another modality, another way in which they and in which it's valuable to humans. So ideally, you want to pick something that's valuable in multiple ways. Is it a building material? Is it a source of food? Is it a potential pharmaceutical? Is it an ingredient in Aboriginal medicine? Is it used for flood or erosion control? Is it a source for recreation or ecotourism? You know, how is this particular plant valuable to humans? And there's lots of ways that it could potentially be valuable. Okay. So what you're going to show me through the process of this is, one, you're going to show me. Oh. Yes, absolutely, you can, Andrea. You're going to show me your knowledge of the structures and functions of those structures of plants. So the idea here is that in this unit you've been learning about, here are the different structures of the leaf. How is a leaf put together, basically? Here are the structures of the stem. How's the stem put together? Here are the structures of the root. How's a root put together? You're going to be showing me some of your understanding of that through this presentation. And I'll talk in a little bit about how you could potentially incorporate that into your project. But keep in mind that that is the end goal, is that you are showing me what you have learned about plant anatomy and function. So plant physiology is what it is, the structures and their functions. And then the second component here is demonstration of your research, what the knowledge is that you've gained on the cultural and technological significance of your plant. Okay, so that's the secondary component there. And it doesn't have to be both of those things. It can be only cultural, only technological significance. Ideally, you're finding a plant that has multiple ways, multiple modalities where it is valuable to humans. Okay. So again, this is a video. Just like the medical technology assignment, you are creating a video of your presentation. You're going to give the presentation. And so all of the stuff that we talked about before the medical technology presentation still applies here. All of the things to consider when making a presentation. I did that little slideshow last time on like tips for a good presentation. Your presentation shouldn't be a script. It should contain pictures. All of those things apply here as well. So I'm not going to go through all that stuff again. You can go back and watch the video when we did all that review before the first project. But all that applies again. You're going to start off with a title slide, your name, course code, tell me about the plant, okay? If you're going to tell me about the plant, it should be the scientific name and the common name. If both of those exist, it'll definitely have a scientific name. It may not have a common name depending on what you pick. Keep in mind that it does not have to be a species. So you could do a species, you could pick a specific species of plant, but sometimes it makes more sense for you to choose something like a family. So I'll give you an example of that. Let's say that you wanted to talk about bamboo. Okay, bamboo is not a species. There are many different species of bamboo. Bambusoideae is a family. So what your project is on is really about the family Bambusoideae. Is it Soideae or Soideae? I'm not sure. Anyway, it's the family. So just make sure that you say that on your title slide, that you're going to be talking about this family of organisms instead of a specific species, and that's totally valid. So you can do that if you want to. It makes more sense in that case of bamboo because a lot of the stuff that you're discussing with regards to using bamboo for construction and all these, it's not one specific species. Often it's just many different species are being used for the same use. So you can broaden it up a little bit. So again, you're going to tell me the scientific and common name for your plant. That can be on your title slide. It doesn't have to be on the description slide. That's up to you how you want to sort of formulate that. Tell me about what type of plant it is. So we've already talked about this, about what a bryophyte, pteridophyte, gymnosperm, monocot, dicot, what all those different things are. What is your plant? Show me a diagram of your plant. You don't need to draw the diagram. However, you need to describe the unique structural features of the plant, okay? So you can't just use a pre-made diagram that has the structural features described already on it. You are going to describe the structural features. So diagram and structural features. Tell me about the life cycle of your plant. So how does it reproduce? Is it only sexually reproducing? Is it only asexually reproducing? And keep in mind, as we're going through some of this stuff right now, we haven't covered sexual and asexual reproduction in plants. That's the last topic of the unit. And so if you're like, I don't even know about anything about the ways that plants could reproduce, that's fine. You don't have to do this part right now. We are going to talk about that stuff later, so you can incorporate stuff. I mean, it's a slideshow, so you can do it in any order. You don't have to do the first slide first. You could do the first slide at the end. Like, I mean, not at the end of your presentation, but you could create it last. So, tell me about the sporophyte and gametophyte stages of the plant. So we're going to talk about alternation of generations again. Plants have a sporophyte generation and a gametophyte generation. Sporophyte being the part where the plant is 2N, where it is a diploid organism. That would be like a somatic cell in your body. It has 2N chromosomes. And then there's also gametophyte stages for plants. That's when the plant only has 1N chromosomes, the haploid number. And that would be like when it is pollen or when it is an ovule. Again, we're going to talk about this later during reproduction, but tell me about when the plant is in the sporophyte or gametophyte stages. Now, I realize people are going to try and find a diagram for their particular plant's reproduction. You may not be able to find one for your specific species. So you may have to find a more general reproduction diagram. For example, if you're doing an angiosperm, which is a flowering plant, monocots and dicots, you might be able to find a life cycle for your plant, but it's possible that you won't, in which case you can just use a general angiosperm life cycle, a flowering plant life cycle, and then you can use, you're going to put your description on it, right? Include in your description how it potentially differs from a standard angiosperm life cycle. Okay, how long is it spending in each stage of the life cycle? Tell me about its pollinators. This is not dissimilar to what you would have done in the species spotlight assignment when you're like explaining the different parts of reproduction. But the difference here is you need a little bit more detail. You're focusing on the reproductive part of it, and you're going to make sure to discuss the gametophyte and the sporophyte stages of the plant. Okay, so that's a little bit different than what you were doing in the species spotlight assignment, which was a lot more general about the life cycle. Okay, so that's that component. Then you're going to tell me about the significance of the plant. This is really where you're going to use your knowledge of the physiology and anatomy of plants. Okay, that, and plus obviously you're going to be describing the part of this is describing the plant, right? There, you're going to be telling me about the flower, about the leaves of the plant, about the stem of the plant, about the root of the plant. That you're going to be incorporating your anatomical plant knowledge there. But in the significance part, you can also tell me about how each particular use of the plant is related to which tissue it is. So, for example, like it's made into a medicine. Well, what is being made into a medicine? Is it the root of the plant? Like, tell me about what part of the plant is being used and how it's being used. Okay, connect the anatomy and the physiology that you've learned to the actual use of the plant. Okay, so I gave an example here. Let's say you're doing bamboo. The ground tissue in a bamboo stem has very high silica content. Okay, that's the center part of the stem. And in bamboo, it has very high silica, which makes it resistant to termites. And that is one of the reasons it's used as an excellent building material. It's also very fast growing. And so you can discuss that as well if you're doing bamboo. But anyway, that's one of the elements. And so here, a piece of the physiology of the plant is related to the actual function of it to humans. Okay, so again, incorporate that information wherever you can. But you're just going to describe all the different ways that the plant is important, include pictures, and ideally you'd be discussing at least two modalities where the plant is important to humans. Okay, so and I would say for any relatively important plant, there's going to be at least two modalities, two ways humans are using it. If the plant is only being used in one particular way, I think you're going to struggle a little bit with this assignment. So I wouldn't pick one where it's only used for one function. However, even something like roses, where you'd say, well, that's just used to like look pretty or whatever. Yes, it has a cultural function that it looks pretty. It's also used though to make perfume. And so there are multiple modalities there, but you'd have to look for it a little bit. Okay, and the last component of that is how has the significance of the plant maybe changed over time? Is it significant now culturally? Has it lost all of its cultural significance but was very culturally significant in the Middle Ages? How is its use and its technological incorporation changed over time? Okay, so you're going to discuss basically like a timeline of when and how it was used. And then you need a works cited at the end. Don't forget that for all of these research projects, you need to have a research document. Okay, it's the exact same research document that you would have used for the medical technology assignment, where you're going to include the APA citation and then point form. In your own words, you're going to describe the information that you gain from each source. Okay, and that has to come in with your project. It's required. Okay, and that is the project. There is a exemplar posted here. I highly recommend it. Now this one is a little bit more long-winded than it needs to be. You're looking for 5 to 7 minutes again. I would really put a hard cap on it at 7. I think this one's 8 minutes. So it does have a little bit of extra in it that is not required in your presentation. You'll notice, you'll be like, oh, that slide doesn't seem to have anything to do with any of the expectations. Yeah, that's extra. So you don't need to do that. There's no reason to include that. You can get a full mark. You get full marks without including any like little extra things. Okay, so you can just stick to the assignment expectations and you'll be totally fine. But this one also is very good at including and describing very well the other expectations. Okay, so I highly recommend it. Have a look at it just so you have an idea of what this should look like when it's put together. Actually, I have 2 of them there, so there's 2 different ones. So if you want to look at some sort of two different ways that you could potentially accomplish that, that's available to you. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now. That's the assignment. If you're done early, please consider getting started on it. It'll make it much easier for you to finish in time. And I'll let you get started. The lessons are pre-recorded. If you have any questions at all while you're going, you want to know if something is a good topic, you want to discuss literally anything from the course, don't be afraid to post in the comments, or in the, these are called comments, right? Yeah, post in the comments section here, or you can just drop me an email. I check them periodically throughout the block. I'm marking in the background here, so I don't always have the chat up, but I will. I do check it periodically, so I will get to your question. It might be like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, but I will absolutely get to it. Okay, guys, good luck. Let me know if you need anything. Oh, and we're back at 11:05 for attendance.